Welcome to Jablam Hockey, folks. I'm your host, Peter Bocharanov, and you can find me on Twitter at Russian98. And you can also follow the show and the website on Twitter at Jablam Hockey, and go to our website, jablamhockey.com. That's JABLAMHOCKEY.com. And remember, you can hashtag us on the internet at hashtag Jablam or hashtag JHockey. Go to our website, check out all our episodes, check out our blogs, our old episodes, and leave comments. And please follow us. And we're on iTunes. All right, what do we have this episode? We are going to be trending now. Of course, talking about big subjects that people have been talking about lately. We've got Kelly from Broad St.Hockey, and she's going to about, of course, the popular new Flyers mascot. You cannot wait for that. We are team ISOing the New York Islanders with guest Matt O'Leary. I've got my NHL Season Predictions, and of course, a new segment at the end. Check out for the season predictions, but also check out Peter's 2 cents. Something that's maybe itching me, bothering me, something I just want to rant about. That's going to be at the end of the show. But first, trending now. Of course, everybody knows this is the beginning of a new hockey season, so Jablam Hockey is going to be a little different. Right now, it's just me, myself, and I, and of course, I've got always guests lined up for episodes, so we're going to start having more guests on the show, 2 or 3 per episode, and I might even have some co-hosts or guests helping me host the show, doing more trending now, because I know it'll be boring just listening to me. Alright, but I'm going to be going solo this week, especially for the trending now, so here we go. The big issue that some people are talking about, especially in the center of the universe, that's, Toronto, of course. It's William Nylander. He still hasn't been signed. Everybody wants to talk about Nylander every single day. I know. Well, he hasn't been signed, but also Nick Ritchie hasn't been signed. Nobody's talking about him at all. He's another RFA. So if we're going to talk about these two guys, or maybe more so Nylander, we got to talk about 2014 draft players. Guys who signed contract just last year. Third overall pick of the 2014 was Leon, the German assassin, I call him, Draisaitl. Got a huge contract from the Oilers. An overpayment, you might say. That's why they might be struggling with the cap and trying to get some better players in there. But $8.5 million for 8 years for Draisaitl. A little crazy. And of course, he overproduced really well in the playoffs, and sometimes you do that. You overpay that. Whereas the Jets locked up their 9th overall, Nikolai Ehlers, who's also doing fairly well, at $6 million for 7 years. It's 2.5 difference. And that's kind of where we're leaning at with Nylander. Nylander 8th overall, Nick Ritchie the 10th overall, expecting quite similar maybe raises for their second contracts as well after the entry level. But obviously Nick Ritchie not as high. But it's still important for Anaheim to lock him up right now, which is kind of crazy. They have cap space because of all the injuries, so it's kind of odd that they haven't signed him. They have Corey Perry's going to be out long term, at least half the season. It looks like Kessler's out, Patrick Eaves is out, I think Andre Kasha. So why aren't they signing him? How much is he asking for? I don't know. There's not much news coming out of there. Whereas every single day here in Toronto, we get inundated, especially all of Canada, and they hate hearing about the Leafs. But here you go. Every single day, Nylander this, Nylander that, or Matthews or wherever else is being talked about a lot on the Maple Leafs. But, of course, with Nylander out, that's a big thing, and he's a big part of the big three. And, of course, remember, Dubas said, we will sign them. So that's a bit of a itchy sticking point right there. But Dubas is probably looking more of the contract closer to Ehlers, whereas Nylander is probably rumored to be asking for almost Draisaitl money. So that's a tough point right now. I did write about it last season, around the same time in October, that I was expecting something similar, roughly $7 million. And I won't be surprised that he does sign something like that early November. The helpful cap point that I found was interesting was the later Williams signs, obviously not after December 1st, his overall cap value will drop to maybe more than roughly $500,000 per year every year after this one if he does sign, which is pretty amazing. And it doesn't matter that if the cap goes slightly up this year because they have a lot of cap room right now, and if that signing does happen, the cap hit for this current year will be a fair bit higher. But who cares when they have the cap space right now? So maybe this is all a part of Kyle Dubas's plan. So I do bow down to him. All right, Kelly, welcome back to the show. We've had you on, I know, at least once or twice last season.
Yeah.
And we had a great fun talking about your cats. I think I remember they were jumping all over you, and we were recording on YouTube stuff, but we're just doing back to the podcast this season. But that was fun.
Yeah. They like to be the center of attention whenever I'm doing anything recording-wise.
So again, Kelly, you can find her on Twitter at Hinx, Hinx. Of course, she's an associate editor at Broad St.Hockey. And you guys are also doing the old podcast as well, right?
Yep, Broad St.Hockey Radio.
And you were just telling me before we started recording, you guys have been going on all summer long. What were you even talking about?
We talked a lot. God, I can't even remember. It's like I blacked out. We talked a lot about potential lineups. We talked a lot about the prospects. We talked a lot about... we spent a lot of time, actually the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about the rest of the league, kind of previewing the different divisions. That's been kind of cool. So yeah, somehow, I don't know how we did it, but we found a way to talk about the Flyers every week over the summer.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Especially, other than maybe the JVR contract, there wasn't too much going on, right?
No, we didn't do a ton.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. But you did do something astonishing. It's what the world is talking about right now. It's pretty crazy. I think if it wasn't him, it was another version of him that was like on all the talk shows. And of course, we're talking about, Scott Hartnell in his retirement, right?
Yeah, they say that he wasn't really based on anyone, but he was very clearly based on some kind of mashup of Jake Voracek and Scotty Hartnell.
Yeah, I was thinking either like Hartnell had, intimate relations with Yuppie during the offseason. Of course, that's the Habs mascot. I love the other meme that somebody created with Voracek as he ages. Like, they had his rookie season, and then a couple seasons later, and then the big beard, of course, that he had recently. And then, boom, he turns into Gritty.
Yeah, it looks like a pretty logical evolution there.
Yeah, it's great. What were your favorites? And, of course, we're going to try to post a few of them on Jablam Hockey. The memes or the videos or anything, or the talk shows appearances, or even any of the stuff he's posted.
I think my favorite thing about Gritty is, I'm not sure if you've checked out a lot of his social media. I'm not on Instagram, but I see these posted on Twitter a lot.
Yeah.
He's got like this really quiet obsession with Claude Giroux. Like, he's always trying to impress him.
Oh yeah, I haven't noticed that one yet. Nice.
Yeah, if you check out his Instagram, it's really funny. Like, he'll just like, I think today he was at an aquarium because obviously we're playing the Sharks tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And he was holding up a sign that said, like, sharks are tough, but they're not as tough as Claude Giroux. And it's just, like, a really subtle running joke that makes me laugh a lot. That I like a lot. I really liked finding out when he met Wayne Simmons, is I think when we all found out that he's got squeakers in his hands and his belly.
Yes.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like totally not on board with the idea of having a mascot because I generally think they're kind of dumb. But when this thing came out, it took me about an hour to come around from absolute hatred to, like, I don't know if I can live my life without Gritty at this point.
I don't know. I loved it instantly, except for, he did look kind of scary. As soon as it came out, I was sending text to all my buddies and saying, I think he just ate a couple children. Because
I was like, what is this thing? Like, what are we doing? Like, what's with the eyeballs? But then I think it was as soon as he tweeted something snarky at the Penguins' official account.
Yeah.
Was kind of the moment when Philadelphia hockey fans fell in love with him.
Yeah, exactly. When there's the hatred between the two, it goes pretty quickly, and fans love him instantly. And it was just crazy because he blew up so quick. Everybody was astonished the way he looked, and then right instantly, within like the next day, he was doing crazy stuff himself with the tweets, with the falling on the ice, and he's like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't know that ice was slippery." With the Wayne Simmons thing, what else?
Shot a guy with a T-shirt cannon.
Yes, that's the other one. What I was thinking about mentioning. It was just beautiful. It was beautifully employed. Just amazing.
Yeah, somehow they really nailed this thing. It's pretty much the best marketing scheme that the NHL has done in as long as I can remember. Like, no one talks about hockey this much, and he was everywhere. He was on Good Morning America. Mm-hmm. He was on the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon.
Yep.
It was like he was everywhere. Somehow I ended up on CBC Radio talking about Gritty.
Yes, nice.
Yeah, it's been wild, but it's been a lot of fun.
I'm a huge fan of Conan O'Brien. Mm-hmm. And did you see the Conan O'Brien one?
No, I didn't actually.
Oh, okay. He takes off his mascot head. So watch that one.
Oh, you know what? I think I did. And like underneath of it, it's like a human version of Gritty.
Yes, exactly. I don't know. I loved it. I don't know. I love Conan's humor, and it worked well with Gritty. Oh, yeah, man. I was dying of laughter there. All right, Kelly. That's pretty much all we want to talk about. But I will have you on later on in the season when we do a Team ISO of the Flyers, and we talk specifically about all the additions and what could happen this season.
Yeah, and I'd like to come back and talk to you about your mascot, which is Austin Matthews wearing absurd coats.
Actually, it was just my birthday 2 days ago, and my sister actually bought me a mini Carlton the Bear, who's our actual mascot.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know, Kelly, and I wanted to post on social media, and I don't think a lot of people do know that, and I'll ask you a question right after about Gritty, but for Carlton the Bear, he's Carlton, his number is 60. Do you know why, Kelly?
I do not.
All right, for all the people that do not know, that was the actual original address of the Maple Leaf Gardens. It was 60 Carlton Street. And Gritty, do you know a little bit about his history? Have they told you much about it yet? And why they chose the number? I believe it's just the number 1, right?
I think he's actually wearing 00.
00, okay.
Yeah, but his creation myth was kind of similar to the Philly Fanatics in that he was birthed in the bowels of the Wells Fargo Center and kind of grew up in the shadows like the Phantom of the Opera, and somehow was hatched from I don't know what, but yeah. He couldn't be more perfect for Philadelphia, that's all I know.
Cool. Thanks for coming on the show, Kelly.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye. Welcome to this week's Team ISO, and of course, like all the other seasons, we will specifically talk about one team and go into the blogospheres and get a better analysis from out there. This week, we are Team ISOing the New York Islanders with special guest Matt O'Leary. He's, of course, the editor and podcast host at Eye on Isles, FS, contributor at Fansided, and, of course, host at Big Apple Banter, where he talks everything New York sports, pretty much, and, of course, specifically talks a lot about the Isles. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and thanks for the little intro there. You pretty much encompassed everything I do in a little nutshell, and that was nice. Thank you.
And, of course, you can follow him on Twitter, at Matt O'Leary, NY. That's at MATTOLEARYNY. So go on there and see everything that he does and everything you want to know with New York sports and the Islanders. So let's get right into it. Are we going to talk about you-know-who with the Islanders and you know what he did in the offseason?
Yeah, I figured this was coming, so let's get this out of the way first.
All right. Big Johnny T. It's just crazy. It blows my mind. First hockey player ever goes into free agency and he leaves his whole old team and he goes home. He goes to his old home. And it's just crazy because old school hockey, GMs, fans, everything, they're causing an uproar. But it's been done time and time again in other leagues. And basketball happens every single year. You go with the Lakers, the Celtics, the Big Three in Miami, the Clevelands, and even Golden State. It happens all the time in basketball. They go wherever they want, whenever they're a free agency. And with other sports, same thing with basketball. But with hockey, they're so old school. And, they say everything nice. And then when it's time to, leave or it's free agent, they just resign. It's never been done before. But when Johnny T does it, it's insane, right?
Yeah, I mean, you said a lot of it, but it really hasn't been done in the sport before. And what really made it tough to swallow was him saying for years on end that he wanted to stay here, that he likes it here. And then on top of that, asking not to be traded at the deadline infers that you are willing to sign long-term here. And then not doing that and hamstringing your team going forward, it's kind of a punch in the gut. And I get, especially as an Islander fan, I get why everyone is so upset and frustrated and angry with him. I know him wanting to go home is a big deal for him. I get it, but I think it was just the way that everything was handled made it so tough.
Yeah, it is tough. But at the same time, if you look at it from his perspective, and old school hockey, like when you're on a team and the cameras are asking you're in practice and they're like, oh, you're going to stay, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to stay. You're just coming out of practice. You just finished the game. You just want to maybe talk about what happened in the game, but they're always asking you about the future. And, and you don't want, if you say no, or if you don't say anything, it's going to be very awkward or very negative automatically because a hockey player saying something like that, ooh, you are an evil man, right? And then at the same point, he does say that, and maybe he really does truly kind of want to stay on the Islanders. They've treated him well. He's been there since day one as an Islander and since he was drafted. But then management goes and changes. Lou comes in. Dougie Waite is gone, your coach that you've trusted. Garth Snow, I know, not a big favorite, but he's gone. And that could be an out as well for him, right? He doesn't know what to expect with the new management. Where are they going to go? So that could have been one of the big reasons why he left too.
I guess so. Again, from the Islanders fan perspective, our response back to that would be, well, for so long, they didn't put a proper team around him, and now you're going out getting a legitimate general manager, and now you're going out getting a legitimate head coach and trying to put this thing in the right direction under this new ownership. I think that would be the counter, saying that the team is now finally stabilized with a good foundation in the front office, and then him leaving just sets you back even more.
Yeah. It's.
So
Go ahead.
Why? I was going to say, I get why he did it going home to Toronto. It's just how everything was handled that really pushed Islanders fans over the edge.
Yeah, I think it was bad timing as well with the whole management change. So I think a lot of it has to do with the organization's failure to support JT the last few years and the change of the guard at the exact moment when your organizational player is at his free agency mark that he could leave. So it's bad culmination of things and bad timing. But then there's the Islanders fans who have a really bad taste in their mouths. And even Lou, he was saying something like, we're going to sign him. Everything's fine. And then after the fact, he's gone and he pretty much says, he didn't accomplish much while he was here, so none of it really matters.
Yeah, I think he was going for the whole, the team under him didn't do that much, and it was just mostly individual accomplishments, which I guess to an extent is true, but again, it's all depending on how you're going to look at it. Yeah, they didn't accomplish much as a team, but they didn't have a lot around them. So I thought it was a little bit of a cheap shot, but JT handled it pretty well after that.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the team. They are moving on, and they've got Matthew Barzal, and then they got on the wing Bailey, and they started the season 2-1. So looking pretty good already.
Yeah, they got off to a pretty quick start. They looked good in 2 out of 3 games, and even in the loss to Nashville, I thought they played pretty well. But Barzal has 3 points in the 3 games, and even Josh Bailey, who many thought would regress after losing to Tavares, he has continued to be productive and has over a point per game too. So that is also a positive sign.
Let's go in to see what they've done during free agency for those changes. So Bailey and Barzal both have 4 points, but then they went and signed, which was a pretty decent signing, in Valtteri Filppula, and he's got already a point a game, 3 points in the first 3 games, and they signed a 1-year, $2.75 with him. They brought in Robin Lehner at a show-me deal at a 1.5 for the 1 year. And then they brought in a lot of these veteran guys, like Leo Komarov, 4 years, $12 million, $3 million per. Brought Matt Martin back, and he still has 2 more years left on his contract. So it's kind of odd. It seems like Lou kind of didn't play his cards right and wasn't expecting JT to leave at all, and didn't go and get a good center at free agency and sign more of these depth veteran guys.
Oh, there's certainly, especially if you look at the second line center, there's definitely something missing there. Barzal moving up from the second line to the first line, I think is fine. He could definitely handle that. But I'm not confident in Brock Nelson centering that second line. I think Anders Lee and Jordan Eberle on that line are going to be good, but Nelson too many times just goes to sleep during the months of December through February. Granted, he'll turn it on at the end of the year and get his 20 goals and 40 points, but by that point, the Islanders are usually out of it, so it doesn't really mean a whole lot. I definitely think that if they knew Tavares wasn't coming back, that would have been an area in which they tried to address, whether it be by a trade or just trying to land another center who was on the market that could slot in on that second line. But yeah, as you mentioned, there's a lot of depth signings this offseason, and I think the route they're going is just trying to see what they have in their system right now and really try and build towards next year in the future.
They even went and gave Pulock a bridge deal, 2 years, $4 million, so $2 million per. Hickey, they gave him a 4-year deal, $10 million, so $2.5 per. And then Lou let Calvin Hahn go, and he signed with the Canes 4 years, $4.55. So does that mean that ownership has given Lou a set cap hit for the team specifically?
It may seem that way. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but yeah, he didn't spend a ton of money on one particular player. To me, I think DeHaan's a really good second pairing guy. I don't know if I would have given him the $4.55 million per year, and I think the Islanders were confident in what they have in their own system, with Ryan Pulock emerging as a very solid defenseman after a breakout year last year in his rookie year. You have Devin Taves as well, who is in the pipeline, probably make his NHL debut at some point this year, who they're hoping to be a top 4 kind of player. So I think we're hoping that they can get the production that DeHaan gave you from someone else already in their system who would be cheaper, and then potentially spending that money elsewhere.
So he didn't make a big splash. What do you think Lou is trying to really do here? Is he doing a rebuild, a semi-rebuild, kind of what he tried to do with the Leafs?
I don't know. I wouldn't go as a full rebuild. I think it's more, I guess you call it a retool.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not naive. This team does have to make changes, but they do have some pretty nice pieces that you can build around. Barzal being 21 years old is one of them. Ryan Pulock on the back end at 24, he just turned, is another piece you want to build around. And then you had 2 first-round picks in Oliver Wahlstrom and Noah Dobson, who will be NHL ready pretty soon.
Yeah,
I think you have a pretty bright future in that young core with the already good secondary pieces in Josh Bailey, Anders Lee, Anthony Beauvillier, and guys like that.
Yeah, speaking about Lee was named captain of the team, right?
Yeah, he was on opening night, actually, before the game. It was officially announced. I was pretty surprised, to be honest with you. I thought they'd go the entire year without a captain.
Yeah.
But I think Lee is definitely deserving of the role. He does a lot on and off the ice, and is definitely one of the leaders. He's been there since, I think he was drafted in 2009 in the 6th round.
Yeah.
So him being on the last year of his contract and them naming him captain kind of, again, infers to me that they're going to give him a long-term deal and that he'll be here for, because I don't think they would have did that if he was just, playing out this year and then going to hit free agency.
Yeah. So you mentioned, which was going to be one of my questions, who the future core is within the next few years. But specifically for this year, who do you think is the breakout player for them?
I might go Anthony Beauvillier.
Yeah.
He came on strong in the second half last year. He put up, I believe, 21 goals. And he had something like 36 points, I want to say. And to me, I think especially playing with Matthew Barzal for a full 82-game season, he's probably going to be a guy to push 25 to 30 goals and around the 50-point mark. So wow. I think he's going to probably be one of the breakout guys for the Isles this year.
You mentioned the 2 first-round picks. Who are other guys kind of in the A or in juniors that you feel that are good up-and-coming prospects that could be up there in the next 2-3 years, solid guys?
I love 2 forward prospects that they have. One is Kiefer Bellows, who was a first-round pick from 2016. He's a left wing who kind of reminds me of Anders Lee in a sense, but can skate a little bit better. He's a big body, can do work in front of the net, but also make plays with the stick. And the second is Josh Hosang, who's a little bit of a controversial prospect. Got called up a couple years ago, was very good at the end of the year. Last year started out with the Islanders, then was sent down because they blamed all their defensive problems on him. But when he was at the NHL level, he produced offensively. And I think under Barry Trotz, he's going to succeed even more. So I'm looking for both him and Bellows potentially to get their shot at some point this year.
So the team rests upon Thomas Greisch and Robin Lehner. 2-1 so far this season. What do you expect out of the full season? And do you think they're going to be maybe a little bit more 60-40 and try to test Lehner and see what he's got too?
Yeah, I think so because to be honest with you, I thought he would be the clear-cut starter, so I was surprised that Greiss got the first 2 games.
Yeah.
But supposedly the word out of camp was that Greiss was better adjusting to the new goalie system that they were implementing, and that Robin Lehner was still a little bit raw. But again, Lehner looked really good today in the shutout win for the Islanders. But I think over the full season, Lehner probably gets a little bit more playing time. I think it'll be close to an even split.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't expect either one of them to be fantastic this year, but I think they'll give you about league average in save percentage and goals against.
And what do you think is the outlook for the Islanders this year? Are they a bottom 5 team? Are they a just outside of the playoffs kind of team? Or do you think they maybe have a long shot?
I think, before this year started, I thought they'd maybe be around 78 points. Mm-hmm. After seeing how they played the first 3 games, I know it's a small sample size, but it looks like the coaching of Barry Trotz is making a bigger impact than I initially expected.
Yeah.
So I might bump that up to maybe you're looking at like 84 points or something like that this year. So not completely awful, but not enough to be in the mix for a playoff spot either.
So that's not going to be good if you want a lottery win, no?
No, you're probably looking at like the 11th or 12th pick, which isn't going to give you a whole lot. But
all right. Well, before we go, I forgot to talk a little bit about fan reactions the way Tavares left. It's tough with the way Lou made his comments, but of course the fans especially online. They're calling him Pajama Boy because of the picture that he released of him not in Leaf pajamas, though, but in Leaf covers. Snake, for obviously with how he left, and them running over his jersey. And of course, the odd thing with pretty much selling out tickets already for a game all the way in February, even though their overall attendance is still lacking.
Yeah, I feel like that last comment was a little bit of a dig, which I get. They don't sell well at Barclays, but it's a big deal to the Islanders fan. Listen, Tavares was supposed to be the savior of this franchise.
Yeah.
So when he was taken first overall in 2009, that was the plan, that he was going to lead this team to their next Stanley Cup. And really, they did not have a lot of success. And to the second round of the playoffs just one time. And again, a lot of it wasn't his fault, but how everything went down, how it all ended, left a really bad taste in the Islanders fans' mouths. So they want to get their 2 cents in and let them know how they feel. I don't really blame them.
Oh, you reminded me. I hate Tavares. Oh, my God. I picked Florida to win that series.
Oh, you did?
Damn that Snake. He was amazing in that series. Oh, he bothered me like hell. Oh, man. So I hope he does that for the Leafs now. But again, now the Leafs are kind of in a little bit of a cap struggle with giving him a fair bit of money. Again, I mentioned it at the beginning. Everybody's so old school with getting so mad about JT, and he just wants to, had a bit of an opening, and he just decided he really wanted to go home. But why is the league so old school that nobody wants to maybe make offer sheets with some extra talent that the Leafs have, and they still haven't locked up Nylander yet, and they have Marner and Matthews next year? Why do you think there's even an inkling of Lou doing an evil offer sheet against the Leafs?
The offer sheet wouldn't work out because they don't have
that's true
picks going forward.
Yeah,
but I'll tell you right now, I will make a trade. We'll talk. What do you want for William Nylander? I'm willing to make a deal with you right now.
I'm not one of these people that's upset about how so-called weak our defense is. I think they're just in transition as well. A lot of them are just really young, and then we got a really, really old guy in Ron Hainsey. So it's a struggle that we have on the back end a little bit, and a lot of people hate Jake Gardiner because he's a little lackadaisical, but it leads to good offensive plays, and yes, some bad defensive plays when you're a bit of an offensive defenseman. So I don't know. I kind of like the way we are, but maybe Babcock's not doing a good job with the back end structure. But yeah, if there's a top 4 defense, you know what? I swear, a few years ago, I really wanted Travis Hamonic. And
okay.
Yeah, and with all the rumors with him, and he really wanted to go back home, and that's more of an Alberta type area, Saskatchewan for him, that it made sense for him to go to Calgary. But he was the type of guy I actually wanted, and if it was like a guy like him, per se, then I wouldn't mind moving a guy like Nylander. I'm a huge fan of Nylander's, but at the same time, when he's playing with Matthews and first-line minutes, he's going to get points. So it's hard to adjust giving him $7.5 million or more, right? So.
Yeah, that's definitely the thing, right? Because it all depends on who they're playing with.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I've been willing to give you a first-round pick and defensive prospect.
Yeah. Not
How's that sound?
Not a Pullock or a Hickey or any one of those.
No, I'm not giving you a Pullock, but I'll give you Devin Taves.
We're more of a in win right now mode. So,
I know.
Yeah, that's the only problem here. Thank you for the offer, Matt, and thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, definitely. It was a fun time. I'm glad to be on.
Cool. And again, you can follow Matt on Twitter at MattO'LearyNY. Matt, thank you for coming on the show. See you until next time.
All right, man. Thanks.
NHL Season Predictions. Here are my season predictions. I know that a lot of them are out there. I'm usually pretty good with them, but then there's always one or two underdogs. So hopefully I go through that a little bit. But I want to go over it quickly, but please go out to jablamhockey.com for my blog, which I'll be posting this week. I'll have a complete comprehensive list for my rankings for each category, breaking down their offense, defense, goaltending, coaching, and experience, and a breakout player for every single team. All right, let's start with the Metropolitan, and I've got at the top the Washington Capitals. I just see them pretty good in every single category, except for maybe the new coach. Might take him a while to get this team figured out, but they still have an amazing team, amazing core, and they've got a Stanley Cup ring now to show for it, so they got experience as well. My number 2 is Pittsburgh Penguins. The same team, same good core, and they got beat by the eventual Stanley Cup champions in the Battle of Washington and Pittsburgh. So I still have them at number 2. This is where it's a bit of a toss-up in the middle for me, and I'm going to switch it up, and I was thinking about putting New Jersey here, but when I broke it down with all the categories, I slipped them under. And I still have Columbus in the 3rd spot, but the question marks surround Panarin, Bobrovsky, if they get moved or when they falter during the season, they could get moved. And that will totally change everything and could drop them 1 or 2 spots down. I've got New Jersey. I had them in the 3rd spot, but I'm going to put them in the 4th. They've got just too many up-and-coming players, both on offense and defense, and Corey Schneider is still underrated. If he gets fully healthy, they should be a team to reckon with and could still find a way to sneak in the playoffs, in my opinion. Carolina, I've got them right there. An underrated, amazing defense. I think I mentioned already before, but they had Hamilton, DeHaan. They just need goaltending, in my opinion, but their offense is still young, and they're going to need to develop a few more years, but they're on the edge and the verge of being a pretty decent team. Philly, I'm not too sure what's going on there. They added JVR, so that's great. So they pushed down some depth. Guy like Nolan Patrick might be able to play a little better in another role instead of a top 2-line role maybe. So I don't know what's going on, but I still have them way down there in the 6th spot, I guess. And then at the bottom is in the 7th and 8th. It's both the New York teams. I got the Rangers and then the Islanders. The Rangers, they're on a rebuild, and the Islanders pretty much. It's going to be a tough few years in New York. And both teams have outstanding offensive kids who will be exciting to watch, but it'll be a struggle too. All right, let's move over to the Atlantic. Got to go, obviously, with number 1, Tampa Bay. I've got them at top marks for almost every single category. But what? I don't know. Their time is now. Who better than Tampa? Everybody's got them up there. They've got to win now, in my opinion, because then they got to start overpaying guys who've been underpaid in the last few years, and they have everything in their lineup. They have good offense, defense. They've got the experience now, and of course, goaltending. Vasilevsky, in my opinion, is one of the top goalies in the league. I've got Toronto at number 2, and Toronto has everything, but maybe lacking a little bit in experience and more development for some of the younger forwards, and of course their D. So I still think they're a year or maybe 2 away from excellence. All right, Boston Bruins are in my 3rd spot. I'm surprised how well they played last year, so I still think they might drop from the 3rd, maybe to a 4th or a 5th. But are they top contenders? I don't know. I think they're only in this spot because the rest of the division is a little bit lacking, and I don't know how much Chara has left in his tank. That big beast is getting older, and he struggled out of the gate last year. So I don't know how much longer he has in the tank there. All right, in my number 4 spot is the Florida Panthers. They were on the verge of breaking out a few years ago and had a great season, and then they made some bad moves. They did a bad job with the expansion draft. They fired a solid coach who's doing really well in Vegas, and now they've had to retool. Are they back on the way up? I don't know. I think they are. Then I've got in the 5th spot, surprisingly. I think an underrated team is Montreal Canadiens. They weren't very offensive before, so I have them really low in the offensive categories. But their defense still underrated, and they're on a bit of a semi-rebuild. But they look like they're going to be a hard-working team with some of those guys like Shaw, Gallagher, and Domi, and the list goes on. And if Price rebounds, I totally think they could be a dark horse in this division. All right, next I have up is the Buffalo Sabres in the 6th spot. They've had so many offseason changes that made them more NHL caliber, but with a lot of changes come growing pains, and they still have growing pains with the younger stars. So I think they're going to slump and struggle, especially out of the gate. But I do predict a solid second half of the season, so they could be up there, at least not at the bottom. Then I have Detroit in the 7th spot. Red Wings are totally in rebuild mode. They've got some good younger pieces that could be exciting, but if they send Zadina back down, they still got some other guys that can still need some ice time to grow. And at the bottom, it's Ottawa. They have had maybe the worst off-season known to man. And they've had to make a lot of changes because of it. And there continues to be a lot of question marks with management and who are their players on the ice. Top players, Duchesne, Mark Stone, free agency looming for them. It's going to be another long year, and keep your chin up, Sen fans. I know how this feels. All right, let's go over to the West. I got the top for the Central, of course, the Nashville Predators for me. Winnipeg just right after. I just think Predators have every single thing you need, and now they have experience. They're just lacking a little bit of offense that they need to get to finish to go deep in the playoffs. Whereas Jets have plenty of it, and I got them in the 2nd spot. They could go all the way this year, and with Hellebuck, if he does exactly what he did last season, they could easily take the number 1 spot and then go deep as well. So it all hinges a little bit more on Hellebuck. If he can continue last year, it'll be a great year for them. All right, let's go. My 3. They dipped a little bit last year, but I bring them back up, and it's my St. Louis Blues. I do like watching these guys. Very good two-way team, but they have a lot more stronger, solid depth with adding guys like O'Reilly and Bozak and Perron's back in the fold. Even Maroon signs a nice low contract because he loves going back to playing in a town that he loves. So they've got way more depth than they have before, especially a little bit more offense and, building up from the previous year they had with different guys. But now the goaltending might be a bit of an issue. So hopefully, Jake Allen or somebody, Johnson or whoever else, can put some better goaltending back in, with Carter Hutton also leaving, who was actually decent last year for them. All right, my 4th spot is the Dallas Stars. I'm flip-flopping between them and Minnesota in that spot, but I'm picking Dallas just above them. I think they're both solid round teams, the Stars and the Wild. But I think Dallas is trending up a little bit and Wild are trending down a bit. Then in the second last spot, I do have the Chicago Blackhawks. They've started pretty well so far this season. But I just don't think they have any depth at all with all the cap hits. They're big kids. But look out again for DeBrincat to have another solid outing. But they need much better goaltending. I hope Crawford gets well, even just in general. All right, and then at the bottom, I have Colorado there. They might be on an upswing, but I'm still not sure what's going on with their goaltending. Varlamov is not what he used to be. And they have a lot of talent on the Avs, but they need a lot more seasoning, a lot more experience. So there's growing pains going to be down there. So they could go up. I don't know how the other teams like Dallas, Minnesota, and Chicago go, but they could go up a little bit, but not too much. I still think they're at the bottom. All right, Pacific. The San Jose Sharks. Is it their time now? Are they ready now? Is this the year they go all the way to finals and finally win it? It could be. Joe Thornton isn't getting any younger, and they made 2 steal trades with the Senators. In my opinion, the best all-around defense in the league, and they still have solid offense and goaltending. Number 2, Anaheim Ducks. They're a very good team all around, but they play a very different style compared to the rest of the league. I don't know. A lot of people have them picked high, and they're really high on Gibson. So expect for Gibson to have a stellar year. I'm not too sure, but I think the Pacific isn't that strong of a division, so I think the Ducks could still be up there, but they have a lot of injuries. If they get through it, they could have a good year. All right, then, so I have them number 2. I have LA Kings at number 3. I don't know. I'm just expecting the Kings to bounce back. I always do. I think they're coached very well. They play a pretty good system. They need a little bit more offense. They did go out there and get Kovalchuk. But of course, Quick needs to be healthy to help this team get more points to make the playoffs. Vegas, I still have at number 4. I think they could make the playoffs. But with, again, another season, an off-season with a lot of changes, and expecting Fleury to repeat what he did last year, that's going to be very difficult. All right, I have Calgary at number 5. Some people have them higher, but there's still a question mark for me. They have great defense, but somehow it doesn't seem to always go together well. And their goaltending to be a lot more better. And of course, outside of their top line, I think it's a little bit lacking for offense. And hopefully Jamie Neal helps them, and he might. But they need a lot more offense outside of those guys. All right, the Edmonton Oilers, I still have them down there. I just don't know what to say. I'm not going to touch it, except for I hope McDavid gets way more help and Talbot bounces back for them. And at the bottom, the Coyotes might be trending up, but I still have them down there. Just too many up-and-coming young players. And I don't mind their back end. I think it's decent, but again, they still need a lot more seasoning. And in maybe 2 more years, they could be a playoff team. That's my NHL season predictions. And again, go to jablamhockey.com and check out my breakout players and what number I gave all the rankings for each team in different categories. And last but not least, before we finish this episode, I'm going to talk about my 2 cents, Peter's 2 cents. All right, so on the opening night of the season, we see the Washington Capitals versus the Boston Bruins, and the Caps destroy the Bruins in a 7-0 game. In the 7th goal, Lars Eller, excited, he celebrates, and he kind of celebrates right in the Bruins' direction, in which words then fly, and the refs kind of stop it. On the next shift, pretty much, for Brad Marchand, he suckers Lars Eller and starts pummeling him. Eller tries to protect himself, but for a player who has played over 600 NHL games over 9 seasons, the lanky Dane has never fought before, so he's not prepared for this. Some compare it a little bit to the Domi suspension, in which Domi missed some preseason games, but he didn't miss a regular season game, which is actually important. So were people shocked Marchand didn't receive any repercussions for his actions? But at the same time, I bet Lars Eller's head is in much better shape than a guy like Aaron Ekblad's. And Max Domi's fists might have a little more impact being a descendant of his father's. Nonetheless, anyways, Eller did take off his gloves, and there's probably a, reasoning why maybe just because of that, Marchand didn't get suspension. But sometimes there is a better way to get back at your opponent. On Sunday night, 2 great players just did that. Austin Matthews and Patrick Kane had stellar nights for their respective teams. The Maple Leafs at the United Center facing the Blackhawks were in an offensive duel. Goals back and forth, and the 2 brightly gifted stars were at their ultimate best. Late in the 3rd period, with 1 minute and 34 seconds remaining, Patrick Kane, just below the dot, waits and scores and ties the game at 5-5. Only 22 seconds later, Austin Matthews takes the lead back. He sets up between the circles and scores, and after that, giving a Hulk Hogan-esque "Can I Hear You" to the fans, while twinkling his little jazz fingers, a bit of Matthews' flair, I'd like to say. Then Kane can't believe it on the bench. He goes back on the ice, and only 28 seconds remaining in the game. Showtime blasts the puck from the point on a one-timer, ties the game again. Kane then gives Matthew his own Hulk Hogan hand-to-the-ear celly. That was fantastic. Austin wins in the end, setting up the winner by Riley for the winner in overtime. The Maple Leafs complete the win. Kane finished the game with 2 goals. Matthew finishes it with 2 goals and 2 assists. But it would have been a lot better if either one of the Sullys, after one of the Sullys, a tough guy probably went out there on the next shift and sucker punched them on the ice for showboating. We don't need these exciting plays, these goals, These comebacks, the flair in hockey, this doesn't belong in hockey. This is old school hockey. We are reserved, we're classy, and we're respectful. I'd rather some guy come out and knock another guy on his ass, giving them brain damage and CTE. What? Again, going back to the old school hockey thing, it's time we move on to the new regime, and it's time we changed. We all need to change for the better. You can like what Domi did, you can like what Marchand did, even you can like what Wilson did. But seriously, things need to change. We need to treat athletes like human beings. You might want to say, oh, it's the game, or that's you got to pay to play. What? We need to expect these guys to have normal lives after the game of hockey and not let them live with serious injuries and brain damage for the rest of their lives. We need to stop letting guys separate the heads from their bodies and just separate the puck from them. There's a much better way to do that. I know you want hitting and you don't want to take hitting away. I used to like hitting, and I still kind of do, but you got to go shoulder to shoulder straight, and if you can't, that's too bad. And sometimes when I see players, and they're like, oh, that guy goes like a train. I know it's a stretch, but if a guy that is much stronger and much higher, bigger and taller and faster, those guys have to need to tone those skills down in the physical aspect of life and in the game. Because other guys are going to be the short and the more vulnerable are always going to be attacked in bad spots. And that's maybe too bad, but if you look at Superman or any other superheroes in the world, they had to tone down for the safety of others. And you can't go full impact sometimes in those kind of plays. So we lose. We lose if we don't move on and win. And when we don't get to see talented players make real, yet unbelievable magic right before our eyes, we lose. All right, that's it for my 2 cents. On next week's episode, we have the NHL Season Award predictions I'll be giving out. Hopefully another Team ISO, and I'll do Leafs talk. Of course, I always talk a lot about the Leafs, but we'll go more into detail with the roster and players on the team. Please go to jablamhockey.com. Please subscribe, rate, review us, comment on iTunes and our website, and check our game notes. There's always some cool extra things. I think, thankfully, my team, Sean and Jason and Brett, are helping me out there. And our game notes are always great. And you can tweet us at jablamhockey, or you can tweet me at Russian98. Until then, see you next time.